Namaste everyone. Jai Shri Ram, Vande Mataram. Today we are going to be live for another session with Mr. Bijeet Prasantha. Apologies to the audience. Today I am not able to have my camera on due to the thunderstorm and cyclone hitting Chennai. So apologies for that. But the show must go on. So we will be having a third session with Mr. Bijeet Prasantha today, and he will be talking about a very important topic in Indian history, also in Indian independence struggle as well. That we will be discussing with Mr. Bijeet Prasantha, and he will be reading a few passages from his book. Uh, Admin, can you just spread the page for the book so the audience know that which book we are going to read today? So this is the book that we are doing a series of readings with the author. So this book is available on Amazon as well as on Garuda Books. The link for the book is pinned on the chat, so you can go ahead and buy the book. And there is also a discount code is available for that, so you can get a handsome discount on this book. So we'll request everybody, if you can go and buy the book. I can guarantee you that the kind of information, the research done by the author is beyond imagination. He has put in all his effort to bring out the truth which was hidden from us for last 50 years or more. So, Vijitda, over to you. So, which chapter we will read today?
Yeah, today we are going to. Am I clear? Can you hear me
Yeah,
right?
audio
Okay,
check. Audio good.
right, cool. So today I'm going to discuss this chapter. Well, it is a subsection of a bigger chapter. Uh, this is chapter 13 from my book History of Hindumisia and Hindu Genocides, and this specific section of this chapter is this chapter is named Genocides in Modern India, and specifically the section that I am going to sort of discuss today is Noakhali genocide, right? Um, and I mean, in the sort of Ashrafi Marxist um, history perspective, this gets projected as Noakhali riot, as if this is something that happened between Hindus and Muslims, and both the section of society were equal participant in it. But actually, today through our discussion, I am going to prove that this is actually a genocide and not a riot, because there was no proportion between the Hindu side and Muslim side uh, in terms of uh, in terms of attacking each other, or in terms of the mayhem that one section caused to another. So Noakhali is basically a small district. Okay, it is to the south of. If you go to Google Map and if you search Noakhali, it is a small district to the south of Bangladesh. It is basically sort of near the Bay of Bengal. Okay, near the Khadi of Bay of Bengal, and it is exactly to the, I think, to the left of the Meghna River. Meghna is our Ganga, right? So in Bangladesh, you know that somewhere near Dhaka, Ganga and Yamuna basically they merge and they flow downward to the Bay of Bengal. And near the Bay of Bengal, there's a big sort of Mohana, right? Confluence of Meghna or Ganga and our Bay of Bengal. So Noakhali is to the left side of Meghna in the in this khadi of Bay of Bengal. Okay, and this is a very small district. It has an area of around I think 1658 square miles. So it is around something around 2000 square miles. A very small district to the southeast of Bangladesh. And at that time, it was accommodating around 18 lakhs people. Well, 18 lakhs Hindus and 4 lakh, well, 18 lakh Muslims and 4 lakh Hindus. Okay. So around 20% was were Hindu and 80% were Muslims in Noakhali. And I'm talking about a period 1946. Okay, so this is the period where Jinnah has called for the direct action day, and he has successfully, quote unquote, successfully implemented it in the soil of Calcutta, leading to death of like if you don't go with the government record, but contemporary record says that it led to a death of around 50,000 people, most of them being Hindu. And after this direct action day, uh, I mean, Congress is pretty clueless. Congress doesn't want to do anything. They have already pretty much signed up for partition, right? But on the other side, it is the Muslim League who is trying to grab as much area as possible. And also, it is the same Muslim League who is aiming to kill as many Hindus as possible, so that the ratio of Hindu to Muslim in the subcontinent get reduced as much as possible. Okay, so it is in this context, this Noakhali genocide that happened. I mean, it started from 10th of October 1946. It went on for around 4 months. The rapid, rampant loot, destruction, rape, genocide, conversion. Okay, everything happened in this span of 4 to 5 months, and pretty much there was no one to stop it. Okay, so Hindus were pretty much left defenseless in that area. All the Hindu leaders got killed, and yeah, and basically Hindus got converted in that area by a very large number. Okay, the police stations that were sort of impacted by this genocide, just for the record, I'm saying it, the names: Raipur, Lakshmipur, Ramganj, Begamganj, Senbag, and Sandweep. Okay, so these were the six police stations where Hindus were pretty much left at the mercy of Muslims. And then after the direct action in Calcutta, um, it basically, the whole thing started when a rumor spread in places like Dhaka and Noakhali that all the Muslims of Calcutta had been killed by the Hindus. Okay, and then there was a Sufi sort of peer named Gulam Sarwar. Okay, I think they have a shrine in Noakhali also, which is called Daira Sharif. Okay, so again, it was a Sufi peer who was given complete power to enrage the Muslims and organize local goons under his command to wage jihad against Hindus. Okay, and then so this is happening here, and I would also like to go back. Well, I can discuss the steps taken by Congress a little later. So let's actually cover the main genocide, and then we'll discuss the role of Congress around that time. Anyway, so the Sufi Pir Ghulam Sarwar now has been given this complete command to wage a jihad against Hindus in Noakhali. Right? There are various rumors that are spreading कि again Muslim खतरे में है, Calcutta में बहुत मुस्लिमों को मार दिया गया वगैरह वगैरह. And now this guy is sort of organizing his army, right? Uh, now on 29th of August, so the genocide started on 10th of October, but a couple of months before that, on 29th of August 1946, soon after the direct action day was over. Now this is the eve of Eid ul Fitr. Then another rumor spread in Noakhali that Sikh Majhab ke log, they had been hired by Hindus to kill the Muslims. Okay, and so after hearing this, the Muslim mobs from around the suburban areas, they gathered in the town with arms and ammunitions. Then in Noakhali, the Congress office was set on fire, and the son of an important Congress leader from Babupur village named Devi Prasanna Guha. He was killed in broad daylight. And then similarly, Chandrakumar Kormokar of Monpura and Jamini De of Ghoshbagh, they were also killed. And 9 fishermen of Charuria were assaulted with deadly weapons. Okay. Now, after this assault on 29th of August, the ulemas and the Muslim League leaders basically met next week on 6th of September to discuss a joint plan to devise ways and means to wreak vengeance for the Great Calcutta killing. So ग्रेट कैलकाटा किलिंग में मतलब डायरेक्ट एक्शन डे में हिंदुओं को मारा बट देन दे सॉर्ट ऑफ क्रिएट दिस विक्टिम कार्ड कि ग्रेट कैलकाटा किलिंग के दौरान मुस्लिमों को मारा गया है ठीक है एंड उसका बदला लेना है सो फॉर दैट they were started to devise a way. Okay, another meeting was held on 8th of September at Dasgodia, where the breaking of idols and desecration of Hindu places of worship were openly preached. On the way back from the meeting, the mob did attack the idols of a family temple. A few days later, Hindus requested the police officers for armed patrols in the bazaar, but the cops showed indifference. Rather, a message was propagated that Muslims could do whatever they would want with Hindu lives and Hindu properties without attracting any punishment from the authorities. So basically, the police, because the police in Noakhali was also dominated by the Muslims, so they pretty much gave a green signal कि you can jihadi mob can do whatever they want with Hindu lives and Hindu properties, and it is not going to attract any specific punishment. Okay, for those kind of crimes, right? So basically, the whole template of genocide, right? It is being laid out one after another. But here, so at that time, the district magistrate of Noakhali was a Hindu. Okay, his name was N.G. Roy. Uh, well, he was a DM, he was a district magistrate, but his police were Muslims. So, because of that, he feared for his life. And then he left the district, Noakhali, on 10th of October with a promise to the Hindu section that he will do whatever he could to save the Hindu minority section of that part, right? But he evidently could not do much as the riot broke out on the very day he left Noakhali. So 10th of October was Lakshmi Puja, so which is 5 days after the Durga Puja in Bengal. So the Noakhali riot broke out on 10th. Well, again, not riot. Noakhali genocide broke out on 10th of October on the auspicious day of Lakshmi Puja. And on the same day, the district magistrate named N.G. Roy also left the place. Okay. So Hindus were pretty much on their own. Okay. Um, now again, I am going back to the events in September. Uh, okay, so in September, Durga Puja was near, right? So Durga Puja held, I think, from 1st of October to 5th of October in Noakhali on, well, everywhere on 1946. But in September, the hooligans used the opportunity to loot the Hindus who were passing through Ramganj Thana from Chandpur, Hajiganj, and Sonai Muri with their collection of new clothes, ornaments, money, and other valuable possessions, which they had bought on the eve of Durga Puja celebrations. So basically, because Durga Puja was around 1st to 5th of October, so Noakhali was at the very south, right, touching the Bay of Bengal. So a little north to that are the places like Chandpur, Hajiganj, and Sonai Muri. So they used to go there and buy their clothes and jewelry and everything. They used to come by boat or by the road to Noakhali. But रास्ते में ही they were getting looted. Okay. um, and obviously tortured, right? And then when the whole Durga Puja vibe was there, like Murti ban raha tha and all. In many places, the idols of Ma Durga were broken and temples were desecrated by cow and buffalo slaughter. ठीक है, तो मूर्ति भी विखंडित करना चालू हुआ. Okay, following this, the rioters demanded that Hindus should surrender all arms, every sickles and scythes, जो भी अपना whatever weapons Hindus were had. I mean, cannot call them weapon because they were doing farming at that area, so they had all these sickles and everything, caste and everything. So the rioters demanded that Hindus are going to surrender even every sickle that they have with them. Okay, rationing of kerosene and petrol will stopped in all shops around Hindu localities. Along with this, an extortion tax was asked from the Hindus with the promise that whoever paid this tax will be spared, and it was just like jizya, which is advised in Islamic scriptures, including Quran and all Sahih Hadiths. Following this, Hindu houses were looted and then set on fire. So what the mob did, they already cleared out all the sickles and everything, like every little arms with which Hindus could resist. So they got them out of Hindu houses. They did the same after 1947 partition as well, where the Bangladeshi state asked for the from the zamindars to submit all their rifles and revolvers and whatever weapons they had with them. Okay, but here also they were asking even the local Hindu farmers to submit their sickles, and then they stopped the supply of any kind of kerosene or petrol from all shops. Okay, and then they said, then they started to extort jizya from the Hindus, saying that if you pay this tax, I am going to give you a certificate which you are going to show to the Muslim mob, and they would not attack your house anymore. And it's the typical Islamic way of extorting jizya. I mean, this is the idea of jizya, that any kafir who is living in an Islamic state will pay jizya for the protection of his own life. Okay, so they have basically implemented this Madani kind of Islam, right, which started in Medina, in Noakhali. Okay, and then obviously they did not spare them after that. Okay, even if they got the tax, the jizya from those Hindu households, they set the Hindu household on fire anyway, right? Then finally came the process of conversion. After a few days of atrocities, the survivors were offered the chance to accept Islam. These survivors also had to give their unmarried, widowed, or even already married daughters to the Muslim mob to prove their allegiance to Islam. Guards were then placed on the doors of the survivor to make sure they did not escape. In some areas, conversion certificates were issued to those converted survivors as a safeguard against the frenzied mobs. Okay. So now, after the Hindu houses were set on fire, they started to convert the Hindus. Right. So initially they started with. So initially they offered ki bhai you have to accept Islam, and obviously Hindus were not ready to. So what these jihadis did, they started to capture the unmarried, widowed, or even already married women, Hindu women of Noakhali, right? As Male Ganimat Kamal. Okay, so I think in this context, I must tell you this Male Ganimat is also an idea which comes from, I think, seventh or eighth chapter of Quran itself. This is called Surah An Al-Fal. Okay, Surah Al-Anfal, which basically means loot kamal. Okay, war booty. So in this apparently spiritual book called Quran, has a chapter about the war booty, right? And there it is clearly written ki the kafir woman and children that you get from the during the war are basically your loot ka maal. ठीक है? So then they started to again, so following this again Islamic scripture, they started to um sort of quote unquote loot these unmarried or married or widowed Hindu women to prove their allegiance to Islam. And then even they what they were doing, they were placing guards before the doors to make sure ki these women or the Hindu daughters they could not escape. Right. So before that, they were starting to. So they were distributing the extortion tax certificate. Now, after a few days, they started to issue the conversion certificate. इसको मैंने convert कर दिया, इसको beef खिलाया and kalma पढ़ाया. So this Hindu has eaten beef and read kalma, hence he has become a Muslim. And here is the certificate. Okay. Then the genocide started on 10th of October on the auspicious day of Lakshmi Pujo. But there was one zamindar. I think he was a zamindar. So this guy is named Rai Sahib Rajendra Lal Chaudhary, who was then the president of Noakhali Bar Association. Right. So the district magistrate NG Roy left, but the president of Noakhali Bar Association, Rajendra Lal Chaudhary, was there and who attempted to build local Hindu resistance against the Islamic mob. On the morning of 10th of October, the Sufi Pir, that leader of Daira Sharif, Ghulam Sarwar Hussain, asked for the head of Rai Sahib. Okay, so he is again um, giving this STSJ slogan to get the head of Rai Sahib before a crowd of several thousand Muslims in Shahpur Bazaar. The mob then set the Kali temple in the bazaar on fire, then looted and burned all the Hindu shops. Another mob attacked the Zamindar of Narayanpur, Suren Bose, who was brutally murdered by the mob and was thrown into the fire in his kitchen along with five other occupants. So this is just like the Hamas style sort of killing, where they murdered the Zamindar Suren Bose of Narayanpur and then basically put his family and him in the oven to roast. Okay. On 11th of October, the next day after Lakshmi Pujo, around 8 a.m., a mob of around 10,000 attacked Rai Sahib's house with the slogan Hindu Rokto Chai, we want Hindu blood. Sonnasir Mundu Chai, we want the head of the monks. You can see the similarity, right, with the ongoing genocide in Bangladesh. They stripped naked, butchered, and beheaded all these family members uh, of Rai Sahib and carried a procession with the severed head of Rai Sahib. So they beheaded Rai Sahib and they started to pretty much play football with it. Okay. And also they butchered and beheaded all his family members, including the woman whom they stripped naked before beheading. I'm quoting uh, from my book, which is taken from some primary source. It is page 298. Quote, a ladder was ingeniously improvised by felling a coconut tree against the wall of the building, and all male members from the burning building were brought down one by one, stripped naked, roped to trees, and butchered with daws, with sickles in the presence of their women folk. Rai Sahib Rajendra Lal Chaudhary was led off separately from the rest to a log of wood and beheaded. The severed head was carried in procession to be presented to the Führer. Okay, Führer, because Hitler got famous at that time. Führer Ghulam Sarwar, the Sufi Pir. The mad crowd shouting and yelling in a terrible manner. Okay, so now there were goons whose names I have also given: Ledu Sheikh, Samshul Haq, Abdul Rashid, Khaled, Sikandar, Kalamia, Muslim Maji, Abdul Qasim, Abul Hussein Chaudhary. And these were the guys who were involved in Rai Sahib's murder. And pretty much all these names that I have taken, they were Rajendra Lal Chaudhary's neighbors. Okay, so it is the neighbors who beheaded the Zamindar, just like again any other genocide, including in Kashmir, right? Mohandas Gandhi reached Lamchar on 11th of January 1947. So this is after. So after the obviously the Zamindar was killed, then they started to butcher and convert all the Hindus around Noakhali, in and around Noakhali. They started to convert them, issue a certificate. They started to molest and rape Hindu women and children also in some occasions, and then they started to issue obviously the some sort of conversion certificate, so that if Congress comes, some Congress leaders like Mohandas Gandhi comes, they can show that certificate ki hey, this guy is no more a Hindu, so you don't need to talk to him, right? um, and so Mohandas Gandhi, after 4 months of this huge genocide that we have already discussed, he came to Lamchar on 11th of Jan 1947. 2,000 Hindus assembled in his prayer meeting at the Lamchar High School premises, where the half decomposed body of 21 Hindus were brought in and cremated. So these 21 Hindus were those few Hindus who got a dignifying cremation, right? That the genocide was purely out of Hindu hatred is substantiated by the fact that the goons killed the Hindus even after Hindu families paid them money for the promise that they would not be spared. They would be spared, right? So the jihadi mob killed the Hindu families even after they paid the jizya in exchange of the promise that they will be spared. Okay, such account of barbarities were described by a young girl in Ramganj police station. So here I'm not going to quote this whole account. It is given in the book, but there were various witnesses and accounts recorded um, in Bangladesh, Ramganj police station, and overall around Bangladesh at that time. And these are actually given in my book. Okay, but I'm going to tell you a few more events there. Muhammad Qasim, as an example, Muhammad Qasim was a goon of Ghulam Sarwar, the Sufi Pir, who led an attack of a huge Muslim mob on the Dast family of Goper Barg. 19 male members of the family were tied with ropes and thrown into a fire pit when 19 widowed ladies were gang raped by the Muslims beside the fire pit. Okay, so it was a huge family of 19 males, pretty much all of them married. The Hindu male were sort of killed and thrown into fire pit, and while their bodies were burning, the Muslim mobs, they were gang raping 91 recently widowed ladies, Hindu ladies. Okay, Chittaranjan Datta Chaudhuri of Shayesta Nagar, after a brave fight with the genociders, killed himself much in the same way Rajputs did before the medieval Ashrafi armies. Okay. Acha, I wanted to say something, but I will take it offline. Okay. Anyway, because again, that whole incident of gang raping the newly widowed woman, they also have previous Islamic record. Okay. Uh, if in case you are interested, you can Google Banu Kureza massacre. Okay, just Google it, and something similar happened to the Jewish community as well. Banu Kureza massacre. Anyway, so now Chittaranjan Datta Chaudhary of Shayastanagar, after a brave fight with the rioters, killed himself much in the same way Rajputs did before the medieval Ashrafi armies when they committed Johar and Saka. So, Chittaranjan Datta Chaudhary was from a Zamindar family and was living in a huge three-storied building. Gauging the imminent danger from the jihadis, he sent his wife and children away, but his mother refused to leave him alone, chose to stay with him in the Zamindar Badi, right? And when the Muslim mob was approaching his house, Chittaranjan continued to fire for hours. When he was left with two bullets, he asked his mother if they should die together for one bullet each. With his mother's consent, he first killed her and then he shot himself. Chittaranjan's head was later chopped off and the mob started to play football with it. Then in Nandigram, Gulam Sarwar Guns killed a teacher on the chest of his wife. And then 2,000 people were converted. Six girls were forcefully married, and one was murdered in the village of Charmondol and Charuhita. On 4th December at night, a Muslim mob entered a Hindu house of Lamchar Jagatpur, lifted a widowed Hindu woman named Monomohini Devi in front of all the males of the house. Monomohini was laid on ground somewhere near her house and was asked to keep silence. She was then held by head and was gagged by one of the Muslim goons, while another raped her repeatedly. Following this, the goons shouted Allahu Akbar as the cry of victory. Hearing which Monomohini De from another, hearing which Monomohan De from another house came first to the spot, he discovered Monomohini lying under a mango tree, half naked. In Jagatpur and Tamta, several brutal rape incidents were reported. In a Bhumik house, men were murdered and all women of the house were taken away and raped. One woman was raped as the house was being burned down, and the rest of the women were taken away. They were returned after around 10 days. In Tamta, another five houses were burnt and women raped for a week, then left half dead. Lavanya Prabha Majumdar, an 18-year-old girl, gave a chilling account of how she was humiliated and raped in a Muslim house a Muslim, in the presence of even few Muslim women who were laughing over the molestation of a kafir woman. And so she writes, कि my name is Lavanya Prabha Majumdar, father of Sri Chandramadhav Pandit. I am 18 years of age. During this danga, my two brothers, Bilas Chandra Majumdar and Jogen Chandra Majumdar, were murdered. Thursday was Kojaguri Lakshmi Puja. 2 days after that, many Muslims surrounded our house, began looting. We were standing on the lawn. The looters soaked the jute sticks with kerosene and started to set fire to the house. At that time, my brother's wife Nonibala and myself rushed into the jungle behind our house. After the houses were burnt out, Kalamia detected me and shouted, Muhammad, Atar Ali, I have found a girl. Then they also came and took me to Kalamia's house. Muhammad and Atar Ali's house was near our house. On the day, I saw many Muslims. After knowing to which family I belong, they said that the girl should not be let go. Atar Ali and Muhammad caught me by hand. Kalamia was behind me. He pushed me from behind and I fell down. I was speechless and weeping. The Muslim ladies of the house laughed over my misfortune. Then the trio took me to the room. Muhammad and Atar Ali went out. Before leaving, they took off my clothes and tore off my blouse. I was forced to lie down and was outraged. I had no option but to endure all the humiliation. They then came Muhammad and Atar Ali was standing on the door. Atar Ali put his hand on my breast and did nothing other. At midnight, Atar Ali and Kalamia raped me again. Throughout the day, they tried to feed me, but I refused to take food. Then in the afternoon, they left me on the eastern side of our burnt out house. So we can basically go on and on. Okay, so I unquote the whole thing here. It was a very long quote. So right, so we can go on and on when it comes to mentioning such incidents in Noakhali. So basically, it was a genocide planned, perpetrated, and later concealed by the Muslim leaders, Muslim locals, Muslim politics, and Muslim police administration of Noakhali. The entire strata of Muslim society were actively engaged in the Noakhali genocide. Established presidents and members of union boards, Muslim national guards, Muslim school teachers and students, local criminals and goons, and even Muslim villagers, including women and children, took part in the genocide of the Hindus. When asked about the casualties in Noakhali, the then chief minister was also Muslim, said that it was only two. He dared to declare this when his own officer, Simpson, announced 716 cases of rapes from only three police stations, namely Faridganj, Chandpur, and Hajiganj. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, it was not a riot. It was basically a genocide. And it was a very planned genocide that went on for around 4 5 months. And then after 4 months, I think on 11th of Jan 1947, Mohandas Gandhi arrived around Noakhali. I think he reached Lamchar, and then he started to. So when Mohandas Gandhi arrived, the Muslim League leaders were like, Mahatma Gandhi should not have gone to Noakhali and he should immediately leave, because the mere presence of Mahatma Gandhi is actually stoking the Hindu Muslim tension in Noakhali. Just imagine, matlab, how they are whitewashing an entire genocide. Anyway, so Mahatma Gandhi roamed around the whole area for a few days. He started to sort of request the, again, to maintain peace and harmony and all those things, but he was eventually he was very much discouraged, and even he was threatened with life. Okay. After which he said, and this is actually published in, I think, New York Times, around that time, he basically announced that Hindus should leave Noakhali or die. Okay, so that was Gandhi about Noakhali genocide. Ki either or die. So it was Mahatma Gandhi, being a Hindu leader, gave the call of Raliv Galiv Chaliv in Noakhali, right? Which was very weird. Um, and in fact, this is reflected in pretty much all the speeches afterwards. Um, right. So I think he came back. Okay, he came back from Noakhali around March or April, I guess, or even before that, in I think Feb. And there was a prayer meeting on 6th of April 1947 in New Delhi, where the Mohandas Gandhi commented that Hindus must die at the hand of Muslims without any resistance. And here I quote. Okay, so the quote starts here. I would tell that Hindus to face death cheerfully if the Muslims are out to kill them. I would be a real sinner if, after being stabbed, I wished in my last moment that my son should seek revenge. I must die without rancor. You may turn around and ask whether all Hindus and all Sikhs should die. Yes, I would say. Such martyrdom will not be in vain. Okay, so here is Mohandas Gandhi who is saying that Hindus will have to die. Will They have to sort of welcome the slaughter on them, and through this martyrdom, uh, something will be achieved. Okay. In fact, he goes on after that. Uh, I can actually quote a few more, but it is a similar quote. It it is all the similar quote that Hindus should die.
Yes, Bijeet, we are sharing that document on the screen itself for the audience to read while you are
Oh, okay.
reading.
Cool, cool. Thanks. So, and then, okay, so this is about the Mohandas Gandhi. What about overall the Congressy Babu leaders, right? So, yeah, obviously around the same time it was. So after the 1946 election, it the Pakistan became a reality, right? From the mere manifesto and books, it became a political reality and the geopolitical reality of the subcontinent. And around that time, when all these things were being done by the Muslim League on the street, the Congressy Babus did not dare to come to street. Okay, they were. So, for example, here I am quoting something. So, from my book, so in my book, page number 266, I'm reading from there. Ram Manohar Lohia, along with Jaiprakash Narayan, were the two socialists who were invited to the Congress Working Committee meeting to with the plan of partition was to be accepted. So these two leaders were invited. Lohia writes that apart from Mohandas Gandhi and Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, no one else spoke a single word against the plan to divide India. Okay. By the way when Mahatma Gandhi was in Noakhali, Nehru sort of discussed and accepted the plan of partition, sort of individually, okay, without even informing Gandhi. As we get to know from this Ram Manohar Lohia's book, Guilty Men of India's Partition. And Gandhi, in fact, confronted Nehru, ki, like, you did not even care to tell me that such a thing that you have agreed to. And Nehru was like, no, because you were in remote areas. So I thought ki the letters would not reach and all these things. So Nehru made some lame excuses. But it was Nehru who was among the first of all the Congressy leaders to accept partition along, I mean, maybe in a meeting with Jinnah and the British. Okay. Anyway, so what was the mahal of that Congress Working Committee meeting? So Maulana Azad. So here is Ram Manohar Lohia writing in his book, Guilty Men of India's Partition. Okay. So here I quote: Maulana Azad sat in a chair throughout the 2 days of this meeting in a corner of the very room which packed us all, puffed away his endless cigarettes, and spoke not a word. Not only did he keep unbrokenly silent at the meeting, he also continued in office as a minister of partitioned India for an entire decade and more. It might be interesting to explore Maulana Azad's conscience, for I, means Ramun Lohia, sometimes suspect that wisdom and elasticity go together. Acharya Kripalani was a pathetic figure at these meetings. He was president of the Congress party at that time. He sat drowsily and reclined at this meeting. At some point in the debate, Mahatma Gandhi referred to the exhausted Congress president, and I shook his arm in deep annoyance. He volunteered the information that he was suffering from a bad headache. Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan spoke a bare 2 sentences. He expressed his sorrow over the fact that his colleagues had accepted the scheme of partition. At a small mercy, he wanted them to find out if the proposed plebiscite in the northwest frontier province could include the alternative of independence alongside of the two other choices of accession to India or Pakistan. I should like especially to bring out 2 points that Gandhiji made at this meeting. He turned to Mr. Nehru and Sardar Patel in mild complaint that they had not informed him of the scheme of partition before committing themselves to it. Before Gandhiji could make his point fully, Mr. Nehru intervened with some passion to say that he had kept him fully informed. On Mahatma Gandhi's repeating that he did not know of the scheme of partition, Mr. Nehru slightly altered. He said that Noakhali was so far away and that while he may not have described the details of the scheme, he had broadly written of partition to Gandhiji. Okay, and Nehru, I must say here, had no love for Bengal. Okay, so here again I quote from Lohia's book, "The Guilty Men of India's Partition," page number 30. uh, uh, quote, I may be permitted to refer to a private conversation with Mr. Nehru in Noakhali around the end of 1946, to which I had more or less been forced by Mahatma Gandhi. Mr. Nehru spoke of the water, slime, bush, and tree that he found everywhere in East Bengal. He said that was not India that he or I knew, and wanted with some vehemence to cut East Bengal away from the mainland of India. Okay, so in a way, Congress did not care at all about Noakhali genocide, and India could not become this Akhand Bharat after the British left because the elite Congresi Babus either did not want it or they did not have the strong conviction to materialize it, due to which the whole Muslim League politics started to over dominate and genocide Hindus without mercy. On top of that, when the some sort of riot started near Bihar as a response to Noakhali, Nehru basically told the Hindus that I will bomb you if you don't stop. Okay, this riot. So this is the history of Congress and overall the history of Noakhali genocide. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Bijitda, for this not so happy and not so good story that you told us. That it makes us sad and but angry as well. What we are reading from your book. So we have few questions which people have asked. So let me go one by one, so you can answer them. So I'll just skim through it. Uh, it's one question. Is that let me just check. I am on mobile, so I'm not able to check. Okay, I'll ask the question on the watch itself. Okay. So Hindu
Yeah,
Vichardhara madam,
yeah.
she, yeah, you can actually
You can
highlight it.
highlight.
So
Yeah.
yeah, what was the role of Mujibur Rahman during Noakhali?
No, so the whole Noakhali genocide was basically planned and perpetrated by the Muslim League leaders, right? Um, and the role of Mujibur Rahman and other leaders around that time was basically that to not represent the real history of Noakhali, I mean, in and around Kolkata, because they were, I think at that time, they were near Calcutta and they were misrepresenting the figures of casualties or all these things. They were basically portraying it as riot. They were actively resisting, uh, uh, for example, our Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi to go there, and obviously they were directing the police to sort of not take any action against the jihadis, just like anything that is going on right now in Bangladesh, right? You can see that even the police administration is also an accomplice in this whole Hindu genocide currently going on in Bangladesh.
Yeah, understood. So there's one more question which the admin will highlight regarding would like to know the Bijit sir's opinion on regarding gun rights which Indians lost during the British era.
What can you show it in the?
The yeah, admin at the back end, could you show the Sanatan Shatwa's statement regarding the gun rights at
No
home?
question. Uh,
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
so I
So he is
couldn't
asking
find it
about
here.
the gun rights. The gun rights. So
The
correct. We
weapon, right?
Indians. Yeah, yeah, gun rights.
Hmm.
Because in the
So,
riot, you mentioned in the in
Yeah,
your
I
monologue.
found the question.
Yeah, this is
So
the question. Let me actually give the read a question for the audio
I'm
audience.
reading it. Right.
The question
Um,
the question
so about the
is,
gun
uh,
rights, right? So
yeah, yeah.
when the so before and after, right after the partition was announced, the state of Pakistan, and also the state of Pakistan explicitly asked for example, the Hindu zamindars and all the other Hindus to submit their weapons, okay, all the guns and everything that they had at their disposal. And once the zamindars started to sort of give away their weapons, um, and we are going to discuss it in the coming episodes. Once they started to give away their weapons, they started to attack the zamindar houses, and obviously the Hindu slums and Hindu houses that the zamindar was sort of quote unquote ruling, right? And this came along with a few enemy property act that sort of emboldened the jihadis to enforce the Hindus to leave their houses from Bangladesh so that they can capture it under the enemy property act that Bangladesh or East Pakistan as a whole had newly implemented.
Yeah. So I'll find some more questions.
Sure.
Yeah. So here's the question: are the Noakhali victims mostly come from Hindu lower castes? Like, is there any
That
class
is right.
difference when it comes to
That is right.
Noakhali
In
victims?
fact, it is the lower caste in Bangladesh that uh, experienced the most brutal form of Hindu genocides in Bangladesh. I mean, in East Pakistan. So that is right.
So
We already
even
discussed
yeah.
about it. I mean, the whole Jogen Mandal and all these episodes that we have
Hmm.
discussed. Jogen Mandal, Ambedkar,
Yeah.
they claim to be these lower caste leaders,
Yeah.
but at the time of genocide, they just could not do anything. They could not come to street or do nothing. They were a
So
silent accomplice in the genocide.
so even after Noakhali knowing about the incidents, uh, like leaders like Jagannath Mandal, they wanted to shift to Bangladesh.
They wanted to
Shift to Bangladesh with the population. Like they wanted to stay in the
exactly.
Bangladesh.
So
Yeah.
right, right. And now the whole, for example, Namasudra community, they are
Mhm.
again being used as a consolidated vote bank,
Mhm.
um, and so-called quote unquote the secular uh, political parties. They are trying to again conjoin them with the jihadi politics. This is the most unfortunate reality. We have to know our history,
Mhm.
and because we are not taught the right history, we are committing the same mistake again and again.
Mhm. So I found this propaganda. Would you call it propaganda? I don't know. So I just found this the whole footage of like the Congress leaders roaming around Bangla.
Right.
Yeah. So like in that era when people are like, about to get their home ransacked and other things, these people are roaming around taking images and taking videos.
Exactly. This is what they
Yeah.
did around
Mhm.
that time. I mean, they could
So.
care
Mhm.
less. They could not care
So
less,
the
actually.
partition of Bengal took place a little earlier, right? It's like coming from a very naive person like me who don't know much about Bengal's partition history.
Ah, earlier, as in, see, the real Pakistan is Bangladesh, right?
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
the idea of Bangladesh was created in the
Hmm.
United Provinces in Aligarh University. I mean, the Uttar Pradesh. So it was basically created by the Muslims in Uttar Pradesh in places like Deobandi, Aligarh Muslim University, all these places. But it got implemented in Bangladesh, right?
Hmm.
Uh, in the 1946 election, and it was Bangladesh where, after committing all these direct action day, Pakistan
Mhm.
became a reality. So yes, the whole movement, the jihadi movement, came to street uh, in Bangladesh, in East Pakistan, before it went to sort of ablaze the West Pakistan, so to say.
So, is there a statistic when it comes? Here is a question similar to
The
that.
number, right? The number.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So the official number that is given is, I mean, it is written in terms of the cases registered. So we
So
just
only the
quoted
registered cases
something.
are taken.
Uh, I mean, whatever
So
it
I think it's
is registered, now you have to
276 page
multiply
number.
it by. So Simpson announced around 716 rape cases. So you have to multiply it by 10. Okay, at least. So that, like, around that time, it is a norm ki to get the right number, you have to multiply it by at least 10. So if 716 cases were registered only for rapes, that means around 10,000 rape cases. And the murder was like what? Let me check. It was 4,000. Mob of 10,000 attacked.
Vijinda, when you are searching
One
for it, this
number,
one
yeah,
more
one second.
question.
So one number, sorry, one number is that there were around 24% Hindus in Noakhali. Nowadays, I think it is 1 or 2%. Um, so if you consider conversion also as a genocide, by the definition of UN Genocide Convention, then it is a genocide of around 3 lakh Hindus. Okay, if you consider both death and conversion, it is around, yeah, around zero point 0.3 million, which is 3 lakhs.
Thank you, Vijinda. So there's one more question I want to read out, which is very important. Is after the Noakhali incident, how did Mr. Jogendranath Mandal had agreed to the partition? Uh, do you have any
Right.
comments?
No, this is a, you see, this is a common pattern, right? I mean, all those leaders, so-called Dalit leaders, many of the Dalit leaders who claim to be a Dalit leader, how much they come to street, right, to fight for the Dalit justice, right? I mean, if you think it this way, that Dalits are the most, let's say, most neglected section of our subcontinent society, then their leaders who sort of claim to represent them are sitting in some, beautiful palace, right? Which basically means that they are the most uh, dissociated leaders for the faction that they claim to represent. So Jogendranath Mandal was given, I think, some ministry, and even after partition also, he was
He was
given
the
the law
law
ministry
minister.
and the Ministry
He was
of
the first.
Kashmir, right? Kashmir affairs. Um, so because he got a ministry, maybe he did not become vocal enough, but he had to resign and he had to come back after a resignation in 1950 March. We are going to probably uh, do a separate episode on the Jogen Mandal's resignation later, because that also actually gives the number of people that got killed. So he gave proper numbers. So he resignation. Okay, he resigned on 8th of October 1950, not in March. And we are going to read the excerpts of the whole long letter that he wrote for his resignation.
Vijinda, there's one more interesting question came from Shaptorshi. He mentions, I have heard from some families who were converted to Islam were later reconverted to Dharma. Has the author heard of this?
Um, so okay, so here is the fact. I think Mahatma. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi claimed that that yeah, he sort of reconverted some of the Hindus okay, after they got converted during the genocide, Mahatma Gandhi reverted them back and did some Ghar Wapsi. But I think he cited a very small number. I think it was in double digit. Okay. And then there was another thing that I talked about. Ki all those many of those Hindus who were getting converted forcefully, they were being issued this certificate. Okay, this conversion certificate, and Congress sort of could not claim on them कि भाई इनका घर वापसी करो. So whatever was being claimed, I mean, there is no witness account of the Hindus who did the who could do the Ghar Wapsi. I'll be very happy if someone shows me any witness. I mean, when I was writing the book, I could not get any direct first-hand account of someone who claimed कि हाँ he did Ghar Wapsi.
Yeah, Bijit, we have one request from HVDD. So, could you recommend a couple of books on Bengal history to go along with yours? So, a
बाप रे.
supplementary reading apart from few books.
So I would now. I mean, this Hindu Vichardhara show. So is he or she a Bengali or not?
No, she is not a Bengali.
Acha. I mean, and then is she asking about a generic Bengali history or the history of genocide or and conversion
A Bengali history, yes, Bengali history.
overall, Bapre?
Not I think
So
1950, 1900s, 1800s. So after 1800s, there are lots
in
of
a
books written.
generic way, I mean, you can start with I think Ramesh Chandra Majumdar has written a very, I mean, he wrote a very good book on the history of Bengal, um, starting from this whole ancient period and then what happened during the Sultani period, so to say, right? Um, so Ramesh Chandra Majumdar wrote a couple of books, at least a very big book on the history of Bengal. Um, I mean, for the Bengali literature, the history of grammar and the language and linguistics, you can read the works of Sukumar Sen and Suniti Kumar Chattopadhyay. Then for the history of the Agni Yug, the armed revolution in Bengal, there are so many books. Actually, just write Agni Yug books and you will find first-hand accounts. So there were many armed revolutionaries who actually wrote books or who gave interviews, which later became books. You can read writings of Aurobindo. Okay. Um, a lot of letters or so when he was running this magazine called Bande Mataram, he wrote a few editorials, letters and everything to understand the Bengali stand on the cowardness of Congress. Then for the Bengali partition genocide and everything, that our there is a Sachi Ghosh Dostidar who recently wrote a book. Uh, Sachi Ghosh Dostidar, he Bengali Hindu Holocaust, I guess that's the name. Then Tathagata Roy, who wrote this book on Bengali genocide, named My People Uprooted. Okay. Uh, yeah, these are the books you can sort of start with to understand the sort of kind of things that we are discussing here. There is a
Yeah.
book by,
So
okay, sorry, I would also
So
like to quote one of the books by, I think, R. Payne, Robert Payne. Okay, he wrote a book called Massacre. Okay, then there was a, so when the Bengal 1971 was happening, there was this guy Archer Blood, who was the American consulate in Bangladesh. So he probably wrote a book. You can read that. Yeah, R. Payne, Robert, Payne, Massacre, the Tragedy at Bangladesh and the Phenomena of Mass Slaughter Throughout History by Macmillan Company. This is the publisher. He wrote it in 1973. And then Archer K. Blood, The Cruel Birth of Bangladesh, Memoirs of an American Diplomat, University Press. This was published in Dhaka in 2000, I guess, 2000 AD. So that is one more book that you can sort of. Is a thesis by J.L. Rahman, Rape as Religious Terrorism and Genocide, the 1971 War between East and West Pakistan. So these are the few books that you can study. Yeah.
So,
So,
Bijit sir, I have a
just one,
question. Yeah.
uh, uh, Nandi, just before your question. So, what we will do is we will on our YouTube community post we will recommend a few books on this, so people will be able to go and check it out. And from my
Sure.
perspective, I think the book by C. Majumdar, and correct, there's one more book called Blood Telegram.
Right.
Yeah. So HV Didi, so Blood Telegram and Asi Majumdar's book, these two books will give you an overall idea what happened. So
Right.
you can start with these books, and I think if you buy the book, you will get the bibliography in the book itself. Is there correct? Which is the
Hmm?
you have given the book names that you have reference from in the book itself.
Right. Right. Right.
So in the book's bibliography, you will find few more books which Vijay has consulted while writing the book.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, Nandi.
Sir, so we were discussing about the political role of Congress leaders in the massacre or genocide. So, what is the role of communist leaders and the party, Communist Party, in the Noakhali incident?
Right. Right. In Noakhali.
Yeah.
So see, the point is, around that time there was, the Party of India. They came up with a new thesis, right, which was even more severe than the proposal of the Muslim League, right? So we have already discussed this. So this guy Gangadhar Adhikari from the Communist Party of India, CPI, he proposed that, and it was accepted by the Communist Party of India, that India is comprised of not one or two, it is comprised of 18 different nations. And after British leaves, India should be partitioned into 18 different countries. And when the whole thing was happening, the Communist Party leaders were actually in active cahoot with leaders like Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, to sort of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman always used to play this nice secular jihadi sort of transitional game, right? And so he was very much in cahoot with the Communist Party leaders. And so again, because Communist Party used to see the whole Hindu whatever Bharatiya civilization as the Brahminist Hindu civilization. So they were in favor of this sort of mayhem of the Hindus, um, to sort of, and they were expecting ki this sort of whole genocide and revolution. In their eyes, all these genocides were basically revolution. They can sort of annihilate the caste structure of India and create a sort of equality that everyone cherishes. Okay,
Mhm.
I mean, at least communism cherishes, and there is no problem with equality, but the sort of line of argument that they were making, and I have written extensively about the role of communism in the fourth chapter of my book. So yeah, so here I am writing. So this is from my book, and the chapter is named Ashrafism and it's asphyxia for peace. Okay, page number 419. The section is idea of a fragmented India. Now, um, Okay, so here I am posing a question. How has communism historically attempted to politically capture the Indian subcontinent? It is through an out and out collusion with the radical Ashrafi power that emerged after the spread of English education in the late 19th century, as discussed below. Point one is idea of a fragmented India. So here I am writing that the Aligarh University created an Ashrafi intelligentsia by 1915, which would give voice to Ashrafi political dominance of the Indian subcontinent. The British silently supported Ashrafism because this was a convenient way to consolidate the native Pasmanda community in order to rule the Zimmi Hindus. But the Congressy Babus were so detached from the common Indian populace that they cared very little about the floating narratives that could drive the native Hindus and Pasmanda Muslims together towards an unified political and spiritual goals. Rather than starting a complete rebellion against the British, Congressy Babus began a propaganda about the need for British institutions in India. The common Indians on ground could not relate to and reconcile with such a defeating political ideology. As a result, social union stagnated and political unity was far from a reality. Indian society by the 1920s became the epitome of a dystopian society with no clear goal or of political or spiritual emancipation. It is only in the during this chaotic crisis of Indian polity that another foreign ideology in the name of communism invaded India. And then I go on. Um, yeah, when Congress tried to launch a movement in 1930, Congress was characterized by the communist parties as a class organizations of the capitalists working against the fundamental interests of the toiling masses. Okay, then there was this guy named Manomendranath Roy, M.N. Roy. He was probably a stooge of the Russian propaganda machinery. So this whole machinery run by Russian was called Communist International. So probably he was a member of that, and he worked tirelessly through his writings to shape up the narrative of the Communist Party of India. As per this newly emerging narrative by Communist Party, point A, India has never been a nation before the British conquest. Point 2, the Sepoy Revolt of 1857 was socially a reactionary movement. It wanted to uproot the British rule with the revived feudal imperialism of either the Mughals or the Marathas. Point 3, the Indian populace is incapable of evolving nationalism or political consciousness. Point 4, only Western oriented denationalized Indians are capable of bringing political methods to bring positive changes in India. Point 5, Hindu nationalism is spiritual imperialism spread by a young intellectual of petit bourgeois origin called Swami Vivekananda. Point 6, Gandhism preached passivity and repudiates class struggles. Hence, it has become an ideology directed against mass revolution. So they basically were attacking all the sort of nationalist sentiment that were growing around the early 20th century. And then they started to collude with the staffs, right? Um,
Mhm.
yeah, then M.N. Roy, the member of Communist Party, he characterized the Muslim League as the close preserve of feudal interests in confrontation with the capitalist Congress, and Hindu-Muslim communal issues as a competition for jobs between the Hindu and the Muslim petit bourgeois. But the sheer Muslim mob power, led by the Ashrafs, that inflicted violence during the Khilafat agitations in 1920s, slowly started to capture the imagination of the communists. They wanted to wage a revolution in India with the help of the frenzied Islamist mob. What was their revolution against? It was, quote, against the primitive Hindu past of India and, quote, against the oppression of the Hindu landlords and capitalists on the poor Muslim peasants and proletariat Muslims. Okay, so this is basically, you can see how gradually Communist Party is sort of shifting their narrative from ki both Hindus and Muslims are bad, at least the Ashrafs and the Congressy Babus are bad. From that narrative, they are slowly shifting to appease the Muslims. Okay. The Communist Party, in order to prove their allegiance to the Ashrafs of Aligarh, came up with a new thesis around the same time. they started to portray the arrival of Islam in India as an equalizing force and as an embodiment of fair play. They established that established in India social equality, and human brotherhood. M.N. Roy wrote a book titled The Historical Role of Islam, published in 1939, that claimed that Islam had attempted to complete the social revolution in India that was started earlier by Buddhism. So now you can connect, right? All these narratives that you see around, right? Spreading through Twitter and all other sort of communist leaders or Congressy leaders started with this M.N. Roy, who is claiming कि बुद्धिज्म ने भी कुछ सोशल रेवोल्यूशन किया होगा. जस्ट इमेजिन, मतलब how can he write these things? Buddhism and Islam, they are connecting कि both were social revolutions. um, I mean, I don't know, मतलब how could they sort of connect all these apparent disparate things, right? But again, so slowly then they started to sort of appease the Muslim League leaders, and in 1942 to 43, they proposed the Gangadhar Adhikari thesis कि India is comprised of 18 nations, different nations, and India should fall apart and give independence to these 18 different nations. Yeah, so basically, then I write that the Communist Party of India and its cadres, through the wanton fabrication of false narratives in this manner, equipped these factionist powers like Muslim League to fight for a separate land called Pakistan, provided the jihadi forces a mask to cover the countless massacres and genocide of the Hindus with the crooked chicaneries of class conflict and the narrative of operation by bourgeois Hindu state on the poor helpless Muslims. And it continues to sell the same bogus narratives even today with the same intention of breaking India, because both Ashrafs and communists have a bigger goal of divide and conquer. Because communism even today wants to break India into 18 different fragments as detailed in the Gangadhar Adhikari thesis, so that it becomes easier for the Ashrafi forces to invade and reconquer the land and destroy the very identity of India, that is civilizational in origin and Hindu in essence. So yeah, so at that time they were basically spreading this narrative कि भाई Islam is standing for equality, and this Hinduism stands for whatever class politics. So Hinduism must be destroyed. India should be fragmented.
Yeah, Abid, one question we have, very interesting question from RS. Bijit sir, is there any reference for how Jyoti Bosu and other communist leaders supported Muslim League in Brigade Maidan of Kolkata?
Right,
Do
right.
you?
There are a few. I forgot the reference, but there are a few accounts actually which records ki how these guys were sort of giving their bites in favor of the Muslim League. So in all the Direct Action Day and the Great Bengal killings were happening in 1946. I forgot the reference. I'll give it as soon as possible. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Bijitda, for your time and for
Hmm.
sharing all the information. I think people who are listening to this, please go ahead and buy this book. I think the information, okay, the truth which is revealed in this book is beyond imagination. A lot has been hidden from us for decades, and finally, someone who has the courage and the audacity to actually publish this book and come out in public and say the truth to everyone, whether they like it or not like it. So the
Right.
link is there. The link is there in the chat. There's also a discount code which you can do. You can add, and you will get a handsome discount on the book as well from Garuda Books. So I would request everyone who wants to learn and read more about our history, our true history, not the history which is taught as propaganda by the academia, by this book. And thank you, Vijitda, for coming for time. Okay. Hopefully, we'll see you next week as well. And one more announcement. So on December 16th, we'll have a special episode with Vijitda where we will be discussing a specific topic that we had discussed. So do do subscribe to our channel and subscribe for notification. So whenever we host a live stream, you will get the notification. Thank you,
16th
Vijitda.
December is the Vijay Divas, when
Yes.
the
Yes.
Pakistani army surrendered and Bangladesh was born. So just to give a hint.
Yeah. So there's a special episode coming for that. So do subscribe, do press the bell so that you get the notification, and we'll see you everybody in next stream. Thank you, Vijitda. Thank you, Nandi. Thank you who all have worked together to get this done. I am in a state where I can't, it's a raining, it's a storm going on. Still, the show must go on. So thank you everybody who worked in the background to get this show up and running. Thank you. Jai Shri Ram, Vande
Thanks.
Mataram, everyone.
Vande Mataram. Bye.